in my life, I live in an agricultural region and it is late August, which I can't even believe. And it is harvest season, meaning that we are bringing the crops in from the field, which means long, hard days, high stress, late nights. It is natural this time of year that this is what it is like. And if you think of human history, when we were all much more agriculturally based and we were subsisting off of what we grew, that's how it would be for all of us, is that we would have a seasonal ebb and flow to times that were busier and times that were more rest based. In other words, the summer, especially late summer into fall, is the high productivity time, whereas the opposite season of that, winter, is a time for rest and digest. So right now, even if you're not agricultural, I was thinking about how this time of year is actually a high activity time for most of us. If you have a family or if you're in education, it's back to school time, so there's a lot of stress from that. Then there's kids' sports schedules that are starting up, maybe more commitments related to community groups or church groups that you're in. This is the time of year when the regular schedule starts to get going, but it's also the time of year where if you have a garden or you're preserving food, if you have a homestead, if you're a farmer or anything like that, you're also at the same time doing this whole other layer of work. Even if you're not doing that, even if you're just having the same schedule day in and day out, the end of the week here on a Friday, which is when I'm taping this, is taping. That makes me sound like 1980s, Erin. When I'm recording this is, the time where we're looking forward to the weekend because we're looking forward to some rest, but our energy may be lagging the most on a Friday. And what do people tend to turn to when they are exhausted? Well, they tend to turn toward stimulants. So going to the coffee shop and getting a bunch of shots of caffeine, oftentimes with sugar. So that's like our quick fix. We might be eating sugar to try to get our energy level. We might even be craving these things because our body's telling us, hey, I don't have enough to do what I need to do here, and I need something to keep going. We might be having tea. We might be making coffee at home and drinking a whole bunch of pots of coffee. Maybe we are going to to somewhere to buy energy drinks or energy shots that are super stimulant. A lot of those ingredients are not very good for us. A lot of the ingredients in the coffees at the coffee shop are not good for us. So even though it gives us that energy in the short term, long term, that's actually causing more harm than good. So what's going on here is that we haven't nourished our rest for a while. Our body is a little bit strung out. Our cortisol and our adrenaline are probably running too high. And then when we take a stimulant, we are actually spiking our cortisol and adrenaline and very often our blood sugars as well, which means that, yeah, we can get through a few more hours of the day, but what happens after that? Not only crash, but it's harder on things like our adrenals to deal with that, with our pancreas making insulin and having to deal with the blood sugar cycle that we're stuck in. And so over time, we're actually making ourselves more tired and more strung out by using the stimulants. Is there an alternative to this? So I like to always work foundationally, and some of our other videos are going to be on some of the more foundational things like nutrition, rest, all of that stuff. But today I wanted to just share with you an herbal, what I would consider to be more of a sustainable and healthy quick fix. So in herbals, we have different categories of herbs, and my very favorite category is one that has come to be quite popular, and that is adaptogens. Adaptogens are herbs that live in the harshest conditions on the planet, and because of that, they have developed ways within their physiology and their life cycle to deal with those stresses, whether it's drought or it's cold weather or it's bugs or something that is causing them undue stress. These plants have developed special abilities to counteract that. So when we take those same plants as herbs, the theory is, and the science has proven out since the end of the Cold War, that those things actually have the same actions in our body. So the adaptogenic herbs help our bodies to adapt to stress and changing conditions. Who doesn't want that? The nice thing about adaptogens is that they are very rarely stimulating. They give us energy, but it's not that huge energy spike. They're not going to be interfering with our blood sugars. And over time, the more we use adaptogens, the more naturalized our cortisol cycle will become which is what we want. We want a good cortisol cycle throughout the day, not one that has all these ebbs and flows and that are unnatural. We want higher cortisol in the morning that slowly dips down at night so that we can sleep well. Adaptogens help our body to get back to a better cortisol cycle. So what does this look like? Oh my gosh, are you going to have to go to the health food store and buy all these things? So here is my favorite adaptogen, and this is ashwagandha. Ashwagandha, in the same family as tomatoes, actually, sort of strange. But ashwagandha is in my opinion, the mother of all adaptogens, and this is where I tend to go to right away when I'm feeling high stress, which I am right now. So I may make this as a tea, I may tincture it, you can make a syrup out of it, there's lots of different things that you can do. But I find those things to take a little bit more time than maybe I would want. And there's also other adaptogens that I might want to have in the mix that I don't want to have to necessarily measure out every day. Plus I know that when my body is depleted, I'm also depleted of minerals and micronutrients. So I actually use an elixir called Ionic Supreme that has a large number of not just adaptogens, lots of different adaptogens, but superfoods that are high in antioxidants that are anti-stress, and then micronutrients in the form of trace minerals. And these three things together, in my opinion, and I've been playing with herbs most of my life, is that combination is extremely effective to help us to deal with our stress that we're dealing with. And I find that when I use an herbal elixir such as that, not only in the moment does my stress seem less, but over time, my stress seems less. Plus, I do feel like I have energy, but it's a natural energy. Now, if you're a person that's just like, okay, that sounds great, but that is not going to be enough for me, I get you as well. There are days like that. There is a small amount of caffeine that for some of us, depending on our constitution, can be okay. And it depends on where the caffeine is coming from. So just so you're aware, a lot of the caffeine that is in the convenience store type energy shots is a synthetic caffeine that is not good for our body. It's not coming from a natural source. It's not coming from a food source. This is a type of caffeine we want to be really careful about. And not only that, but it's put in there in really concentrated forms that our body is just not adapted to dealing with. On the other hand, throughout human history, humans have used natural stimulants in small amounts in their natural form. So coffee in its natural form that's not concentrated, that doesn't have a bunch of chemicals in it, is not necessarily bad for everyone. There are some of us that can tolerate it, there are some that can't. But what I have found to be so amazing is to combine a little bit of natural caffeine, about the same amount as in a cup of tea, like black tea or a cup of coffee, with adaptogens and trace minerals. And so I like to use this natural energy shot that has those things in it, and I do not find it to be overstimulating. I actually am extremely caffeine sensitive myself, especially when I'm stressed out. And I find that if you are caffeine sensitive, what you have to be really careful about is when you're more stressed out, you need less stimulation. If you push that envelope too far, you're going to find yourself in a world of hurt. Trust me, I've been there many times. But this little guy, he is a friend. And I just find those two things to be those stop gaps during those times when we are really stressed or we're really struggling with exhaustion and energy. This guy can be really helpful for those moments, but then longer term, finding those adaptogens that you can incorporate into your daily life to help you overall with your stress response will mean that you will need less stimulants in the end.